Alright, we are going to dive into JavaScript today, and we're going to start out with variables, but there's a few things I want to talk about first. I've got this file open, which is variables, data types, and functions.html. Now, we've already used this file in class, but if you're watching this video, I want you to re-download this file because I made some updates to it, so I just want to make sure that the file that you're using when you watch this video is exactly the same as the one I'm using, so that all the line numbers are the same and everything like that. So make sure you get the new version of that file downloaded, and you can ask me where to get that if you're not sure. And also, we're going to open up this page, but let's all use Firefox. That way we'll all be on the same page, and I'll show you some things that are kind of specific to Firefox later. So I'm going to go ahead and open this page in the browser, and what did I do here? Alright, I think, let me just check something here. I'm going to back up a second here. Okay, so we want to open this file in the browser now, and I want everybody to be using Firefox here. So I'm going to go ahead and do open in browser, and Firefox is my default browser, so when I do this, it'll pull up this page in Firefox. If your default browser is something else like IE, then go ahead and open it up and then copy this URL and open up Firefox and then paste this URL into Firefox, and then you should see this page right here. Okay, so I'll be bouncing back and forth between Sublime Text and the browser quite a bit. So here we go. The first thing you need to know is that one of the ways that we can use JavaScript code in a web page is by putting it inside of a script tag. So here's my opening script tag on line 51, and way down, maybe a couple hundred lines actually, is my closing script tag, and everything in between that script tag is JavaScript code or comments, and we'll talk about comments in a second. So it used to be that you had to have this type attribute set on your script tag, but things have changed, and now if you want to put JavaScript code in a web page, you can just do a script tag like this without any attributes. Alright, then I also want to show you what comments are in JavaScript. So there's two ways to put comments into your code. Here on line 61, you can start, if you start the line with 2 forward slashes, or we call them whacks, so whack, then everything else on that line will be a comment. Now a lot of times your comments are just notes for yourself, but sometimes you actually comment out lines of code because you don't want them to run. Maybe you're testing, and a lot of times you'll put all these alerts all over the place, and you don't necessarily want to see them, so you can just comment out the line of code. So you can use whack to comment out a single line of code. If you have a bunch of lines of code or a bunch of lines of comments and you want to comment them out, you can use whack splat to start the comment and splat whack to end the comment. So everything in between those will be comments, and if there's code in there, it won't run because it'll be commented out. Alright, so here on line 69, I want to give you a hypothetical situation that will kind of open the door for our next discussion topic, which is going to be about variables. Now, I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this, and I think we know what this is going to do now. It'll show an alert box up, and I'll show you that real quick. So I'm going to save and then bounce over to the browser, and you can see that, sure enough, an alert box pops up and it says John inside of it. Let's just say that throughout my program, in many different places, I want that alert box to appear. So this line might be duplicated in many different places of my program, all over the place. Maybe it's even 100 times. Well, then one day I might come to realize that I don't want it to alert John, I want it to alert something else. So in that case, I'd have to go through my code and find all of these lines that say alert John and change them to whatever else I want it to alert. That sounds like it'd be pretty messy, and you can imagine that you might miss some places, and just a big maintenance mess. So here's a good use case for variables. What I could do here is, I'm going to go above this line here. I can create a variable and instead of hard coding John into that alert, I can just go ahead and put the name in there, the name variable. Now if I wanted to change all those alerts from John to Sally, all I have to do is change it in one place, and because we're referring to the variable name rather than the value itself, my program will get updated in all those places where I'm trying to alert the name. Alright, so what is a variable? I'm going to comment those lines of code out since we're done with them. A variable is just a way to store a little piece of data, and it has a name. So here's a variable that I created, and the name that I've given it is SumVar. Now I've never been the kind of programmer that gets down to the real low level stuff like bits and bytes, but what I can tell you is that when this line of code runs, a little chunk of space in the computer's memory is set aside so that we can store some data in it. And if we want to get that data and use it, we can refer to it by the variable name here. So in JavaScript, if you want to declare a variable, and declare is the formal word for it, but maybe create a variable seems a little bit more intuitive, you have to always start the line with this var. And then you put a space, and after that space comes the variable name. Now you can name your variables whatever you want, but there are some rules. So, and then we see a semicolon here, and lines in JavaScript end in semicolons. So that's somewhat true, but for now you can think that when we write a line of code, it usually ends with a semicolon. Alright, so I've declared a variable here. There's a little space in memory that's ready to accept some data, and if we want to access that space in memory, we can use the variable name, which is SumVar here. So, but there is no value in there yet, so we've declared the variable, but we haven't initialized it. So if I scroll down here to line 78, I'll see I'm declaring another variable, which I call age, and I'm actually giving it a value of 7. So here's the part where we declare the variable, then we use the equal sign, and whatever's on the right hand side of the equal sign is the value that variable will store. Once I've got a variable initialized, I can start to use it. So right here I can alert out the age, and I think you know what this will do. I'll do it anyway. So I'm going to save, go over to the browser, and it alerts out 7. That's the value of our variable called age. By the way, this is called initializing a variable when you set a value to it, and we use the equal sign to do that. Makes sense. And that equal sign is called the assignment operator. So here I'm declaring a variable, and here we're initializing a variable or assigning a value to a variable. And here on line 79, we're just using the variable. Okay, so why would you ever declare a variable but not initialize it? Well, sometimes you don't know what the value is going to be. Sometimes you're going to let the user determine what the value is. For example, here on line 89, I'm declaring a variable called first name, but I'm not initializing it to anything. So here on line 92, I'm going to comment out lines 92 and 93, or I'm sorry, remove the comments. I said comment out, but let's go ahead and save this after removing those comments and run the page. I'm going to refresh here, and you'll see now it's saying enter your first name. So I'll enter John, and then I'll hit OK, and then I see an alert box that pops up that just regurgitates whatever I entered. Let's look at the code for that. And that's these 2 lines of code right here. So that first line of code ran, and it here's the command that makes that little pop-up window appear, and it gives you a message, which I put right here, and whatever I type into the text box becomes the value of this variable. So once that variable is set, I can use it throughout my program. So here on line 93, I'm just using the command that pops up an alert box that shows something. So, and we'll get into alerts and prompts a little bit more later. All right, now I want to show you how you're going to have syntax errors as a beginner, because you're still learning how to write the code. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, and it can be extremely frustrating. Let's go ahead and before we do that, let's put comments back in on lines 92 and 93. And then let's go down to line 97, and I'm going to uncomment this. Now, I know that this is going to cause an error, and the reason why I know is you can see I'm trying to declare a variable with the name of 1x. Well, I know that variable names in JavaScript cannot start with numbers, so this is illegal. So this is going to cause an error on my page. So I think it's really important for you to learn how to use the tools in Firefox to help you spot these errors and help you fix them, because the worst thing in the world is if you're a beginner and you have a problem and you don't know where to begin to solve it. So I'm going to save this after removing the comments on line 97. So I'm going to save it, go over to the browser, and I'm going to pull up my developer tools. So I hit F12, and I'm going to refresh the page, and I can see there's an error right here. And I'm not even going to look at what the error message is, because a lot of times they're really cryptic and they're really hard to understand. But the important thing that I want you to know is that if I go all the way over here, it'll tell me what line number the error is on. So that 97 right there, that's telling me it's on line 97. And I can actually click on it, and it will take me to the place where the error is. All right, so that's how I can isolate my errors. Now, it's possible that the actual error could be the line of code before line 97, or maybe I suppose it could be the line after that, but you should always look either just before or just after or right on the line that it's saying that the error is occurring on. Okay. The other thing I need to let you know is that if you don't have this button pressed, you're not going to see your JavaScript errors. So first of all, you got to make sure that this button is pressed, and I think it becomes a light blue then. And on top of that, you have to make sure that I just clicked on the little arrow here, and you have to make sure that you should have both errors and warnings. Those should both have check marks next to them. Otherwise, you may not see your errors or your warnings. So that's something that tripped me up for a while. Is I had errors. I knew I had errors, but I wasn't seeing them in my log because I didn't have that checked. So see, I've unchecked it, so the error went away. But when I add the check again, it comes back. So that'll help you when you're troubleshooting. All right, let's go back to the code. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out line 97. And I'm going to skip over camel case. We discussed that in class. So if you have questions about it, just let me know. Now, the other thing I want you to know is that you can reassign values to variables. So right here on line 104, I've declared this variable up above in the page somewhere, and I actually initialized it to a value, but there's nothing that prevents me from changing that value. So here I'm reassigning a value to this variable called first name. That's okay to do. So if you want to see it in action here, I'm going to go ahead and remove the comment on line 105 and hit save, go over to the browser, and you can see there now our variable was called first name, and I reassigned a value. The value that I reassigned to it was Buster. So you can go ahead and reassign values to variables whenever you want to. I'm not liking that IntelliSense that's coming up, but whatever. Okay, over here on line 109, the next thing I want to talk about is how you can use expressions when you assign values to variables. So what is an expression? An expression is nothing more than an equation. So here's an expression. It's just a mathematical equation. And I guess before that I need to point out that I've got a variable that I declared here, and the variable name is Celsius, and the value that I've assigned to it is 40. And then on the next line down on 110, I'm declaring another variable called Fahrenheit, and I'm setting it equal to this mathematical equation. So this is an expression that I've got highlighted here, and an expression is nothing more than an equation that you can solve. So I could, if I know what Celsius is, the value of Celsius is 40, I can kind of I can just stick 40 right in here, and then multiply it by 9 divided by 5, and then add 32, and that will convert 40 from Celsius to Fahrenheit for me. So you can use expressions when you assign values to variables. Okay, I think that's it for now. I'm going to pause for a second here, and we're going to talk about data types next, but I'll start another video for that.